There's nothing quite like watching your national team win a World Cup, while an entire country pours into the streets to celebrate. Some nations are a lot more used to being booed every time they touch the ball. Some have built their entire footballing identity on it, spanning a broken nose here, a punch there, and one squad that mutinied against its own manager on a bus. Stick around, because the team at the end of this list has been accused of literally fixing a World Cup, and it's still one of the most disputed runs in the tournament's history. Here are the most hated national teams in football history. Argentina have lifted the World Cup 3 times, but plenty of fans outside South America see them as the team football loves to hate. It goes back to 1978, when Argentina hosted the tournament under a military dictatorship and needed to beat Peru by 4 clear goals to leapfrog Brazil into the final. They won 6-0. Decades on, suspicions of a fixed result still follow that scoreline around, with critics pointing to grain shipments and a Peruvian goalkeeper who happened to be born in Argentina. Then in 1986 came the hand of God, Diego Maradona punching the ball past England's goalkeeper and calling it divine intervention afterward. Fast forward to the 2022 final, and goalkeeper Emiliano Martinez was still at it, taunting French players during the trophy ceremony and holding his Golden Glove award up to his crotch on live television. Argentina have never really shaken the reputation for bending the rules, and every few years a new moment gives the haters fresh ammunition. Fair play to them though. 3 stars on the shirt is 3 more than most countries will ever get. Netherlands. The Netherlands are supposed to be the home of total football, all flowing attacking play and orange flair. Then came the 2010 World Cup final. Facing a superior Spain side, Holland decided the only way to win was to kick their way through it. Referee Howard Webb handed out a record 14 yellow cards that night, and the moment everyone remembers is Nigel de Jong planting his boot chest high into Xabi Alonso like he was auditioning for a martial arts film. Webb only showed yellow. Spain won anyway. The Dutch Federation later dropped de Jong from Euro 2012 qualifying after he broke an opponent's leg in a club match, which tells you everything about his reputation by that point. Neutrals still call it one of the most cynical performances in World Cup final history, and it's the reason they'd have kicked their own grandmother jokes about Holland have never really gone away. France's meltdown didn't happen on the pitch, it happened on a bus. At the 2010 World Cup in South Africa, striker Nicolas Anelka was sent home after reportedly hurling insults at coach Raymond Domenech during halftime of a defeat to Mexico. In response, the entire squad refused to train the next day at their base in Knysna, sitting on the team bus with the curtains drawn while hundreds of fans waited outside. Team director Jean-Louis Valentin resigned live to the media in disgust. France won just 1 point at that entire World Cup and were sent home in the group stage, but the real damage was to their reputation. Knysna became French football shorthand for national embarrassment, and the federation held a formal tribunal afterward that suspended 5 players. Uruguay are a small country with one of football's biggest reputations for gamesmanship, and it mostly comes down to one moment. In the final minute of extra time in the 2010 World Cup quarterfinal against Ghana, Luis Suarez threw up his hands and blocked a certain goal on the line. He was sent off. Ghana missed the resulting penalty, and Uruguay went through on penalties instead, with Suarez celebrating wildly from the tunnel. Asked about it years later, Suarez still refused to apologize, insisting the missed penalty wasn't his fault. It wasn't a one-off either. At the 2018 World Cup, Uruguay's Edinson Cavani and teammates were repeatedly accused of time-wasting and theatrical falling to protect narrow leads, a pattern pundits traced directly back to that night in 2010. Ghana fans have never forgiven Uruguay for costing Africa its first ever World Cup semi-finalist, and Uruguay have built a national footballing identity around doing absolutely anything it takes to win. Now, the next one on this list isn't remembered for a tackle or a handball. It's remembered for 90 seconds where 2 entire teams stopped even pretending to compete. West Germany. At the 1982 World Cup, West Germany needed a win over Austria by 1 or 2 goals to send both nations through at Algeria's expense. Germany scored inside 10 minutes, then both teams essentially stopped playing, passing the ball around with no real attempt to attack for the rest of the match. The result eliminated Algeria, who had beaten West Germany earlier in the tournament. The game became known as the Disgrace of Gijón and led directly to FIFA changing the rules so that final group games are now always played simultaneously. Nearly half a century later, it's still cited as the most blatant piece of collusion in World Cup history. Algerian fans still bring it up every single tournament, and it remains the single biggest reason people don't trust dead rubbers at major tournaments to this day. Italy. Italy built a footballing culture on catenaccio, the ultra-defensive system designed to stop opponents scoring rather than to entertain. That mentality has produced some genuinely dark moments. At the 1994 World Cup, defender Mauro Tassati smashed his elbow into the face of Spain's Luis Enrique inside the penalty area, breaking his nose. The referee missed it completely, but television replays were so damning that FIFA handed Tassati an 8-match ban after the tournament had already ended. It happened again on the biggest stage of all in 2006, when Marco Materazzi baited Zinedine Zidane into headbutting him in the World Cup final itself, getting the French captain sent off in the last match of his career. Combine that with Italy's long-standing reputation for shirt-pulling, time-wasting, and theatrical falls, and it's easy to see why so many neutrals find them the hardest national team to love, even when they're winning. Cameroon's Indomitable Lions became global stars at the 1990 World Cup, the first African team to reach the quarterfinals. They also became infamous for how physical they were prepared to get to do it. Against Diego Maradona's Argentina in the opening match, defender Benjamin Massing scythed down Claudio Caniggia so late and so hard that he picked up his second red card of the game on the same challenge, becoming one of the most replayed tackles in World Cup history. Cameroon still won that match 1-0, one of the great shocks in tournament history, but the manner of it left a permanent asterisk next to their name for a lot of European fans. 2 decades later, at the 2014 World Cup, the story turned uglier again when the squad reportedly refused to board their flight to Brazil until unpaid bonuses were sorted, and rumors of a bribe defeat in a group match against Croatia followed the team home, feeding a running theme in African football that Cameroon have never fully shaken. Chile no national team controversy tops the Battle of Santiago at the 1962 World Cup, when Chile hosted Italy in a group match that descended into an actual brawl. Players threw punches, security had to enter the pitch multiple times, and only 2 players were sent off despite what was widely described as one of the most violent matches ever played at a World Cup. English commentator David Coleman opened the BBC's highlights reel by telling viewers they were about to watch one of the ugliest, most shameful displays football had ever produced. Chile won 2-0, but the game is remembered less for the result and more for the sheer chaos. And it's still used today as the go-to example whenever pundits want to describe a match that crossed the line from physical into something else entirely. Brazil are supposed to be the beautiful game personified. 5 stars on the shirt and a reputation for joy over cynicism. That image took a hit at the 2002 World Cup, when Rivaldo was struck on the leg by a ball kicked toward him by Turkey's Hakan Ünsal, and instead clutched his face like he'd been hit square in the jaw. Ünsal was sent off. Television replays made Rivaldo's dive so obvious that FIFA fined him, the first time football's governing body had ever punished simulation after the fact. It became one of the most replayed embarrassments in World Cup history, and it's the clip that comes up every time someone claims Brazil only play the beautiful game. We're not done. The next 3 teams have all been accused of the same thing at different tournaments, 20 years apart, threatening not to play at all. Ghana usually get remembered as the wronged party from that 2010 quarterfinal, but they've picked up their own reputation for chaos along the way too. At the 2006 World Cup, Ghana's clash with the United States turned niggly and physical, and by 2014 the team's own federation was flying millions of dollars in cash to Brazil by charter jet after players threatened to boycott a match over unpaid bonuses, a scandal that made headlines around the world days before they were eliminated. For a country with genuine footballing talent, Ghana have spent almost as much time making news for bonus disputes and dressing room fallouts as they have for what happens on the pitch. If you thought that was bad, wait until you hear what happened in a stadium that turned into an actual battlefield. Portugal have never quite escaped the reputation for simulation that followed them through the 2000s and 2010s, and one man in particular is central to it. Across multiple tournaments, Portuguese players, including Cristiano Ronaldo, were repeatedly accused by rival fans and pundits of going down under minimal contact, none more infamously than the 2006 World Cup quarterfinal against England, when a wink toward the bench after a teammate's red card fueled years of resentment among England supporters. It didn't end there. At that same tournament, Portugal were involved in the most cynical match of the whole competition against the Netherlands, a game so violent it became known as the Battle of Nuremberg, and produced a World Cup record 16 yellow cards and 4 red. Add in a squad frequently painted as arrogant on the biggest stages, and Portugal remain one of the teams neutrals most enjoy seeing knocked out early. Spain. Spain's reputation problem isn't about tackles or dives, it's about one of the ugliest scandals in the sport's history, and it happened to the women's team. After Spain won the 2023 Women's World Cup final, Federation President Luis Rubiales grabbed player Jenny Hermoso by the head and kissed her on the lips during the trophy celebration. Without her consent, live in front of the world. Rubiales initially called the backlash idiotic feminism and refused to resign. Players across the entire national team squad said they would refuse to play again under his federation, and the scandal eventually forced his resignation and led to a criminal trial in Spain. What should have been the proudest moment in Spanish women's football history became a case study in exactly what's wrong with how the sport is run, and it's a stain that still follows the federation years later. South Korea saved the biggest one for last. Co-hosting the 2002 World Cup, South Korea rode a wave of home advantage that still gets debated to this day. In the round of 16 against Italy, a referee disallowed a golden goal for offside that replays showed was clearly onside, then sent off Italy's Francesco Totti for what looked like a soft second yellow, before South Korea won in extra time. In the very next round against Spain, 2 more perfectly good Spanish goals were ruled out, and South Korea went through again on penalties. FIFA later suspended the referee from that Italy match for life. South Korea reached the semi-final, still their best ever World Cup finish, but outside the country, almost nobody believes it happened on merit alone, and it remains one of the most disputed runs to a World Cup semi-final in the tournament's history. From fixed scorelines to forced kisses, from broken noses to a country that flew millions in cash across the Atlantic just to keep its players on the pitch, hate in international football rarely comes from nowhere. Which national team do you think deserves to be on this list? Drop a comment below and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next one.